Welcome back to Artist on Record. This is your ultimate intimate conversation with your favorite artist.
The first time ever that Elvis sang with an orchestra. He had always just sang with his trio of rhythm section, and then they'd go home, and then would come the overdub musicians to give it more body and full orchestrations.
Mm-hmm.
But he was scared to death when he showed up at the recording studio. We did some of the tracks. We did most of the show live.
If you're looking for trouble, you came to the right place.
But some of the tracks we did at Western Recording Studios on Sunset, when Elvis walked in and saw a string section and all the brass and so forth, he called me out on Sunset Boulevard. That was his thing. He said, "Steve, I've never sung with an orchestra before. I never heard a Billy Goldenberg arrangement in my life. And if I don't like what I hear, you got to promise me you'll send everybody home except the rhythm section. And we'll just start with the trio, and you can bring musicians in another time when I'm not here." And I promised him. We went back in the studio. He stood by Billy Goldenberg on his conductor's podium and never looked back. I mean, they bonded like, well, the fact that he hired him to do his next movie is more than enough testimonial. Billy's arrangements updated all these early Elvis hits.
Mm-hmm.
He had matured. It was 10 years later. His voice was stronger. His musicianship was better. And Billy captured all of that with the Wrecking Crew. And those guys just did a phenomenal job on that soundtrack. Bob Finkel did tell me when NBC was approached by Parker to finance, all the movie studios had dried up on Elvis and the Colonel. They were not about to pay the Colonel his $1 million fee. And so the Colonel wisely said, who's got all the money now in show business is the record industry and television networks. So he said, I'll get the money from a television network. Never thinking he would have to do a television special if a studio financed Mary Tyler Moore and Change a Habit. Well, when he met Tom Sarnoff at NBC, Tom was smart enough to say, we'll put up the money for the movie, but in order for you to get it, you got to deliver a 1-hour Elvis television special. Well, the Colonel never told Elvis this because Elvis had told the Colonel he was sick of television. He felt he was which he was, exploited by all these 60s comedians who were hosting these comedy hours in prime time. Even Steve Allen had him dress in a tuxedo and put a hound dog in front of him on a table and made Elvis sing Hound Dog with this dog, in the picture with him. And Milton Berle show was very popular, and he did a comedy shtick with Elvis, and Elvis was a caricature of himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, I don't think Elvis would have probably got off the ground, especially knowing the business as I know it, without Colonel Parker. He did manipulate him. He did make this deal with Sun Records to sell his contract to RCA. I think RCA paid $25,000 for it. That was a lot of money in those years. And Sam Phillips had signed Jerry Lee Lewis and all these major, Johnny Cash, major stars, and had to sacrifice giving up Elvis's contract to keep his Sun Records alive, even though he says, I did it for Elvis because I knew I was too small to make him world famous. And the Colonel did with RCA, really, especially when he went on the Ed Sullivan Show and everything. I mean, he made him famous. But there's a time in all of our lives when, you have to say, okay, I paid him back, and it's time to move on. The problem with the Colonel, he didn't give a damn about Elvis's talent or art or whatever. First time I met the Colonel, he said, when I first saw Elvis, I think he was the booker on Louisiana Hayride, which was a touring company of mostly country stars. And he said, I came into the arena and I saw all these young teenage girls just going nuts and crazy. And I didn't even look at the stage. I said, whoever's making those girls react that way, I want to leave the Louisiana Hayride and manage them, which is exactly what he did. So it was really a case of, as Elvis moved on in his life, the Colonel was a great promoter, but certainly had no creative management skills. And Elvis was under a lot of pressure from his mother and father, et cetera, that the Colonel was their meal ticket to getting out of being so poor. So he did anything and everything that the Colonel said. And if the Colonel couldn't get him to do something, the Colonel had his father wrapped around his little finger and could get his father to get Elvis to do anything. So when I met Elvis, when Elvis asked me what I thought of his career, and I answered honestly. And at first I thought he was going to kill me. Instead, he broke out laughing, said, finally, somebody's talking truth to me. And we just went from there. We hit it off. As a matter of fact, I was getting nervous because Elvis, didn't want to change anything. That I had two great writers on the special, Alan Bly and Chris Beard.
Yeah.
And they did the original format. And by that time, the real lucky thing is when Elvis said to me, I've got Priscilla and my new baby. Lisa Marie was only 2 months old when we did the 68 special. And they're living in a rented home I rented in Beverly Hills.
Mm-hmm.
And is it possible, so I don't have to make that drive every day from Burbank to Beverly Hills 2 ways and waste all that time and energy? Can you put a bed in my dressing room here and I'll live out here? That was the greatest thing that ever happened, because I would have never seen the improv and the acoustic session, which after rehearsals or after taping something at NBC, Elvis would go into his dressing room bedroom and jam with whoever happened to be hanging out at the time. And they would just kind of reminisce the old songs. I didn't even have DJ or Scotty. That was when the Colonel finally said, I'll let you create what you saw in the dressing room on stage, but I won't promise you can even use it. And so I didn't know what I was going to get, period. I just knew I had to get it because this is what everybody from the day I saw him on Sullivan was talking about, but nobody had ever captured it. Nobody had ever seen it.
Make sure you catch Reinventing Elvis 68 Comeback. Links will be in our description, and keep your eye out for more episodes with Steve Binder. Hit the notified button so you don't miss them, and subscribe and put your comments down below. We'll catch you all later. Mwah.